Hey friends, it's time again for that thing you just wait for every week. Once more with feelings. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Beth, and we are an emotional journey podcast where we watch movies, we talk about how we feel then and now, and we discuss what these movies might mean to us and to other people. And are we truly romancing the stone?
Oh, so let's just get this party started. Do you know what that means, romancing the stone?
It's the process by which jewelers figure out how they're going to cut and polish a gem.
Okay, you were supposed to say no. I don't know.
Actually, I know this because my cousin actually works in the industry.
I know that, and that was really a stupid question on my part. I should have just let you answer it. So Romancing the Stone is a 1984 Robert Zemeckis movie. Funnily enough, they thought this movie was going to tank, so they preemptively fired him from Cocoon, which was good because it gave him the opportunity to go off and do his own thing.
Back to the Future,
yes. Yeah. So this movie stars Michael Douglas, who was a babe back in the day.
Would you like me to read the wiki?
Oh, I guess so.
Okay. Romancing the Stone is a 1984 romantic comedy adventure film directed by Robert Zemeckis, as you said. The story follows Joan Wilder, a successful but lonely romance novelist, who receives a treasure map from her recently murdered brother-in-law. When her sister Elaine is kidnapped in Colombia, Joan travels there to exchange the map for her sister's freedom. Along the way, she meets Jack Colton, a roguish adventurer. We'll get into that. And together they embark on a thrilling journey through the Colombian jungle, facing various dangers and uncovering hidden treasures. Mm-hmm. That is as per Wikipedia.
And one thing I really should have done was write down how many times they say Cartagena. Because they say Cartagena so many times in this movie.
Right.
Like, so you're going to Cartagena. What hotel are you at? The Hotel Cartagena. I mean, I guess there's only one hotel in Cartagena. Don't know, never been. You know, hey. So as I was saying, Michael Douglas, hottie, back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Oh. No, I mean, they're both, right? I mean,
this is their prime. Kathleen Turner.
Say it's their prime. It is a bittersweet moment in time for Kathleen Turner because she developed rheumatoid arthritis, which has plagued her throughout her life since then.
Oh, wow.
So not saying she got it during this movie, but in her 30s is when she got it. And that's why you see a significant drop in her performances after romancing the Stone series.
Yeah, and she wasn't too thrilled with Robert Zemeckis's camera styles. She just thought he was, a newly graduated director, and he didn't understand her way of acting, and she didn't understand his way of directing, and so there was some clashes there.
But what drove it was, of course, Michael Douglas, who produced it.
Yes.
It was his.
He didn't even want to be in it, though. He wanted to produce it, and he wanted to be but he didn't want to be the leading man, but they couldn't find the right leading man. Sylvester Stallone turned the role down.
That was really good for them.
Yeah, because he went off to do Rhinestone, and honestly, he had regrets. Lots of regrets.
So, yeah, Michael Douglas, I think it was his production company.
I believe it was. So
and also the writer, the person that wrote the script, she was a waitress. Mm-hmm. And she wrote this, and Michael Douglas picked it up because it was fresh, because it was something that wasn't so polished as to be pretentious, and it was just written from the heart. And he really liked it, and she died.
Right after the second film, I think.
Right, before the second film released.
The second film, yeah.
Yeah.
But it got her out of being a waitress, too. So
right, and she had...
and the car that she was in was the one that Michael Douglas had gifted her.
Right, but her boyfriend or husband was driving it, yes. Not that it was his fault, because I don't know the reasons why, but that's what happened.
So, and then Danny DeVito plays Ralph, and He's in it because he and Michael Douglas were roommates in New York back in the day. So Michael Douglas started getting really popular, and he had gone over to Hollywood, yet he was still paying the rent on the apartment that he and Danny DeVito were sharing.
Right.
And, they always stayed pretty close. So when this role came up, Bob Hoskins had been thought, and a few other different actors. But Danny got it, and he always credits it as the movie that kind of like pushed his acting career beyond. Because, I mean, really, what did we know him from? Taxi. Yeah.
He was a dispatcher in Taxi.
And I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to make this statement. I think I've made it before, but if I have not, here it is. If Disney, are you listening, Disney? And I know you hear us. If you ever do
They
a
don't hear
live,
us.
no, they hear the other people, and a few of us have voiced this. If they ever do a live action version of Hercules, which I know they've done a live action of everything, if they don't cast Danny DeVito as Phil, because nobody can play Phil like Phil, the original Phil. So that's just what I'm saying.
I thought you wanted him for Hercules.
No, Phil. He's Philoctetes.
Okay.
No, Phil.
So we have Danny DeVito, Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas. They were the dream team
They really were.
for this entire series. Really, this was like their lethal weapon.
Yeah, and the thing about this, and they did have, people had a comment or two about how this was an Indiana Jones-like movie. And obviously, it is not an Indiana Jones-like movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark,
It's not.
It's not, but because of the success of Raiders of the Lost Ark, this kind of movie, they call it the Saturday afternoon matinee adventure type of a movie, which it really has. It kind of set the precedence for many other movies. So I have a list of movies that fit this profile.
The Mummy.
Not on my list, but yes. I didn't write the list. These are 80s movies. Mummy came in the 90s. So
I know,
these
but
are
it's
80s.
still a good movie.
Yes. So these are the movies that they fit the kind of mold of that Saturday matinee, mold that they're calling it. Obviously, Raiders of the Lost Ark. We have Sky Pirates, 86. Jake Speed. Don't know that one. King Solomon's Mines, 85. I remembered that one. Alan Quartermain and the Lost City of Gold.
I've heard these. I have not watched any of these.
Some of them I remember, and some of them I don't. Like, I don't remember River of Death, High Road to China, The Jewel of the Nile, because that came on after this one. Nate and Hayes, I don't know that one. Motherlode, Treasure of the Four Crowns, a.k.a. Treasure of the Four Crowns. What? That same thing. They literally is the same thing. Okay, weird. And so The Hunter and the Golden Cobra, and then Temple of Doom, and then Last Crusade. So they all kind of, they have that same kind of throwback to.
Some of those I can see yes, and a lot of those I say is probably not. Just because they're an adventure in another land doesn't make it the same kind of genre.
No, I mean, because honestly, then
This is a romance novel come to life.
I'm not talking about like Romancing the Stone, though. I meant like these were compared to that whole feeling that Raiders of the Lost Ark brought back. Because the popularity of Raiders of the Lost Ark, there were a lot of, I wouldn't say copycat, but movies trying to grasp that whole adventure serial throwback to the old
Errol Flynn, that type of thing.
those types of things.
Sure, but Romancing the Stone stands out because Joan Wilder is the protagonist.
Yes.
She's the lead, not Michael Douglas's character.
No,
Jack Colton.
it's all about Joan Wilder.
Yeah, she's the lead. He's the scoundrel.
And that's definitely where this movie stands out, because none of those other movies have female leads.
Right. And this is written in very much a woman's point of view.
Yes.
When we talk about, like, when you say Thor is a male-centered or male view, then in this case, it is a woman's view of adventure.
Of adventure. Because I would totally say that Thor is a female gaze.
He's not, though.
No, he's not.
Objectively a male gaze. because he's designed for men to identify as men.
I think I like Thor more as Thor movies progress. Like when he becomes more.
That's because they started being written more for the female gaze rather than the male gaze.
Oh yeah, I like him when he's depressed and playing Xbox.
Yeah, but he starts progressing that way. But he starts out as male gaze, and this is for the female gaze. Romancing the Stone is a woman's adventure.
Oh, definitely.
And it's written for them, or at least it very much seems like it. And I think that people identified with that, and they really enjoyed that. And I think that men liked it because they got to feel like they were still part of it.
Well, yeah, because you have the Michael Douglas character, and Jack is the man's man. And he has a soft side, but he is also very much rugged and tough. And I think a lot of that is an outer shell, as he's led this questionable life, and he is out in the middle of a jungle literally capturing birds so he can make money, because that was probably the least offensive thing he could probably do. And he even says, I could be doing this, or I could be running drugs, and he didn't want to do that.
So capturing birds and doing that, which I think is highly unethical in any situation.
Unethical.
It's still, that was something that happened pretty readily.
And how did he get him out of the country? Because
smuggling the same way they would do drugs.
That's true. Because I had a friend who, back in the day, many, many, many years ago, who worked for museums, and he actually went to Peru, and he had gotten from a gift shop a butterfly display, and he was detained. They wouldn't let him bring it into the country.
Yeah, smuggling. That's how they do it.
Yeah, because I mean, he was very upset about that. He was bringing it back for the museum, and wow, hadn't thought about him in a long time. But yeah, So definitely the female protagonist is very much, especially in 1984.
You have to really suspend the morality for Jack.
Oh, definitely.
Because other than that, he's a perfectly normal person who mentions his mother several times. And that is another, again, for the female gaze.
Yeah.
He loves his mother.
Though he follows it up with, I should have listened to my mother, and I could have been a plastic surgeon. I could have been up to my eyes in tits and ass. So, I mean.
That you altered yourself.
Yes. So, I mean, there you go. He obviously, he's got that nice ebb and flow of who he is. But he is definitely not, he's not a bad person. He helps her. He bitches and bitches and bitches. But again,
he takes money for helping her.
Yes, he takes $375.
Which is $5 billion today?
No, it's not. It's only like $1,100, give or take.
That's $5 billion.
Not in this economy. Oh my gosh. So what did this movie make you feel the first time you watched it?
This is one of those movies that's littered with feelings for me, from just thinking back, because on one hand, I really wanted to identify with Jack because I was trying so hard to be that person. But all I ever did was identify with Joan Wilder. So it's always going to be a confusing thing for me looking back on these. Not confusing, conflicted. Because, when you're trans, you don't get a choice on who you are any more than a cis person does. But you have this illusion of choice, because you can choose to keep trying to maintain a facade. And that facade gets broken in your own mind, because you can only maintain the mask for so long. And every time you see a movie like this and you think, I could be her, it's completely unfair. I mean, of course, no one can be Kathleen Turner, but I could be Joan Wilder. I could be that girl who dreams of finding a man, or who just sweeps her away, who will travel through a jungle with her and help her save her sister. I mean, how saccharine can you get? This is very, they're not making money. They're not there trying to find the treasure.
No.
Even he falls in love with Joan, and says, screw the money. Mm-hmm. Let's get your sister. That's what a woman wants out of this.
And they didn't...
want loyalty and honesty.
The idea to go and get the treasure wasn't for their own,
It was kind of Jack's, but honestly, it was for leverage.
First, yeah.
It was for leverage to get the sister.
Yeah, and that's pretty good as well.
But yeah, I was really conflicted watching it because there's two people in this movie you want to be.
Oh, definitely.
Ideally, you want to be Joan. Mm-hmm. But realistically, you're going to have to settle for being Jack.
Or Danny DeVito.
Or Danny DeVito, who his character is worse than Danny is. Danny DeVito is awesome.
Yes.
And he has played in the 80s and in the early 90s the sucker punch to every, Adonis. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's always the other twin.
Yeah, literally.
But he's brilliant.
He really is.
He has made such a life. The man has done everything. So, to be Danny DeVito must be pretty awesome. He's lived a full fucking life.
Yeah, and he's definitely on my list of actors who I will be very, very sad when they go.
But, he's got plenty of time.
Oh, and he's got plenty of time, but I have a list. I'm getting older.
We just saw Rhea Perlman on
Poker Face, yeah.
So they're doing just fine. But, I wanted to be both of them for different reasons. Mm-hmm. Jack for the mask and Joan for the heart. So when this movie came out, it was painful. This is high school. 84 was my high school year. That was when I was a freshman. And
how messed up is that? I was 10.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm older.
I know, I forget that. Because it doesn't matter now, but then it was a big difference.
You can put that on my epitaph. You were only 10 in 1984. You win. But I just wanted to be Joan. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to have to consider Jack, but I had to consider Jack because that's who I had to pretend to be. In some way, you had to pretend to be the manly person, the person that was going to be there for, protection and strength and everything else. But really, Joan's the one that did it. Joan is the one that pulled it out of him.
Oh, yeah.
And she was the catalyst for the adventure in the first place.
Yeah, because if she wasn't going there to help her sister, then they wouldn't have met, and then they wouldn't have gone on...
Jack never would have gotten the boat he wanted to get.
No, he would never have.
That was always a pipe dream. He was always going to use the money as just living, and he was never going to be able to save.
Though, I'm assuming he had money saved already, because $375 in traveler's checks was not buying that boat.
I know. He lost everything he had, remember?
That's true. Yeah, he did.
And that was just birds. So that tells you something. He's been there for a while collecting birds.
Yeah.
And he had made no money, no savings.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things where, in my youth, it was conflicted. It was sad in a lot of ways. But I was happy to have a story I could kind of pull into myself. Mm-hmm. This is one of those romantic stories that's adventurous enough to kind of hit all the notes.
Oh, yeah.
And it made you feel like you were in a romance novel. It just truly made you feel like anything was possible, which is amazing for a 1984 adventure film.
So, I was 10. So, I don't remember exactly how I felt or how I related to the movie then. It wasn't until years later, rewatching it, because again, it was always on cable and HBO. I remember thinking, first, I wanted to talk like her. I have this thing, and this is nothing against women's voices in general, but I never wanted to sound like I had a soprano voice. I never liked that. I always loved the sound of a deeper voice on a woman. I don't know what it is about it. It has always just, to me, made them more interesting. And I don't feel like I have a deep voice, though I feel like I do have a deeper voice than a lot of maybe my peers that I do know. And listening to her talk also helped me break a lot of the New Jersey-isms that, while they don't bother me now, they really bothered me as a kid. And so I was always listening to people like Kathleen Turner, who has a very pure accent. Like, she's no accent. She's just got a pure way of speaking. And people like her in news. If you were ever trying to learn how to lose your accent, well, it used to be. Nowadays, with so many local news programming and people who are locally,
they really don't do that.
They don't
anymore.
really. But that back in the day, it was you could watch the news and you can hear, because they use that bland Midwestern. Nothing against the Midwestern accent. I'm just saying that's what they would use, and that's what they called it. It was this Mid-America. You didn't have the California. You didn't have the Mid-Atlantic or the North Atlantic or the Southern. And you listen to it and you can learn how to enunciate those words. And for me, that was so important because I didn't want to sound like the Jersey girls that I was hearing around me. It bothered me as a kid.
Right.
Because so living in the South now, I know that a lot of people, and I've always known this, but people always make fun of the South, It's always been a thing that has been my whole entire life. You always hear the jokes. But as growing up in New Jersey is also the butt of so many jokes. And I didn't want people to make fun of me. Even my bullying and my self-esteem went so far as to be bothered by the place I came from. Even though the people who bullied me also came from the same place. So it's weird, but it is one of my things. So listening to Kathleen Turner as Joan Wilder definitely was one of my inspirations for how I learned how to get rid of a lot of my accent. Like I said, it doesn't really bother me now. It's what it is. But also, I don't talk like this. I don't even know if I could talk with a higher voice because I just was intrigued by it.
Right.
And yeah, as I got older, Jack, everybody wants a Jack in their life. You want the guy who's going to take care of you, protect you, but also has a soft and sweet side and who's going to shake his ass on the dance floor like he did, and is going to be willing to buy you a dress. He bought her that dress. That dress was perfect. He's like, I'm going to go buy us some clothes. And she comes out of the shower and there's this beautiful dress and it was perfect. And so you have this ideal, and yes, he is almost the impossible reality, but she was looking for that impossible reality in her story. And, she was looking for her Jessie, which was her fictional character. Jack became her fictional character.
Right.
So when you have that happening in the story, your mind starts to go, well, I can have that too. I want my fictional character. I want my Jack. So there's that going on. And so, yeah, the movie always made me happy. And it always made me have this longing for the unobtainable. Because I was young enough then to not know that reality is not necessarily the reality that I needed. But it was the reality that at the time I wanted, because it's that whole, princess in the fairy tale, and you want your Prince Charming. And Jack at that moment was a rough and tumble Prince Charming.
Right.
And that's, that was the thing. So that's how I felt then.
So Gloria Horn, who is Joan's editor, is looking, I guess, Joan has written her novel. She's finished it. That's what she's doing at the first of the film. She's celebrating.
Yes.
And
with
she
her
goes,
cat, Romeo.
Right. And then she goes to see Gloria, who says, you've got a hit on your hands. And so they're all very happy.
Mm-hmm.
But then she gets that call about her sister. And that's when everything kind of goes to crap.
So in reality, if little Mrs. Irwin had not taken that letter from the mailman, when Zolo ransacks her apartment,
right,
he would have found the letter and all would have been fine. Well, it wouldn't have been fine. Her sister probably would have been dead. I don't think so. I don't think Ira and...
Yeah, the bad guy is not actually Ira. Ira's just an opportunist.
Yeah, because they don't...
And he's not looking to kill anyone. He was just looking to threaten people into getting what he wanted.
He's a quote-unquote art collector, but really he just wants historical pieces so he could sell for his own, needs.
Yeah, and he made out not at all in this
Not at
film.
all.
So, but yeah, Gloria is trying to get Joan to pick a man. They literally go through the whole bar where she's
I know.
like dropping shade at each one of these guys.
But I have to give her some credit because that's the shit that men do with women. That's the same thing. They're looking at us and it's the whole don't judge a book by its cover. But they are looking at women and they're doing the same thing. And that's what she's doing. She's like, oh, he's too happy. And that one there, he's a loser. And and that one's a double loser. Based on their looks alone, she was not giving them the opportunity. And the one she did give an opportunity, she was like, oh no, been there, done that. Using the t-shirt as a rag,
But while she's doing that, Joan doesn't want any of that.
No.
And that is one of the things where she is pressured to feel like she must date someone. Mm-hmm. And she is waiting for someone who makes her feel like she writes.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay.
Oh, yeah. And she's happy in her little bubble. She's got her cat. They actually had to redo some of the early scenes to give her the cat because it made her more relatable instead of just having this writer living by herself. And I kind of see that.
Which I think is okay, too. Oh, you can just be by yourself. You don't have to have a cat.
I do like Romeo, but I'm a sucker for a kitty.
Yeah, but you don't have to have a cat. I understand they wanted it to kind of appeal to everyone, and a cat kind of helps that. But, this is about self-discovery. Any romance novel is about discovering yourself and how you feel about things and what it is you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And this whole movie is about Joan discovering herself because she's lived, but she hasn't really lived. She's alive. She mouses her way through the streets of New York. Mm-hmm. She is afraid of everyone, or at least doesn't want to be bothered by anyone.
Yeah.
And probably rightfully so.
I mean, the guy in the corner with the hand puppets telling her boyfriend would like it. That's creepy as shit.
He even says it's a kink, and I'm like, weird. How is that a selling point?
Not, again, not trying to shame anybody, but that's a kink I have yet to hear. Those stupid little hand puppets that wrapped around you. I think I had one as a kid,
But I think that more than anything else, it's not really about love and romance. They're tied to this film, but I think it's more about a woman finding her own inner strength. And you see that as it progresses.
Oh, yeah.
She starts out very unsure of herself and very unlikely to do anything other than crouch near her suitcase. Mm-hmm. At any given point, she takes advice from complete strangers. In fact, the bad guy, the de facto bad guy of the film, which I want to point out, if you're Colombian and you're in, the police, if you're a policeman in Colombia, doesn't automatically make you a bad guy.
No, just that this guy happened to be.
I think they tended to, especially in the 80s and early 90s, they resort to the tropes of bad guy, obviously going to be someone who is foreign, and also probably corrupt.
Yeah, and so let's think about what's going on at the time. We had the Ollie North scandals, and for those youngins out there, just look that up. It had a lot to do with drug cartels in Nicaragua. And
the Contras.
The Contras, yeah. So there's a lot going on with South America. I think it would be along the lines of, I guess, right now, if somebody made this movie, it would be, maybe a Russian bad guy.
No, I don't think it would be the Russians.
No,
we were saying the main.
If you're going to go cliche, yeah, they'd still put a dark-skinned person in there because that's what they do. And nothing.
Because this administration really likes Russia.
Yeah, that's true. They would be. I was thinking of the regular person looking at the administration, but yeah, no, you're right. So, if that's the thing is they're not the bad guys. It's just that Zolo happens to be, he has like a shopping list of names, but he is known for also hunting down artifacts, but he will kill for them. And he is not a decent person in the least. The thing about this movie is they were originally, because it takes place in Colombia, and they were going to film it in Colombia. But, however, at the time, there were a lot of Americans getting kidnapped in Colombia. Not just to make it sound like a cliche, but it was a very bad time because, like we were saying, you had all
there was a lot of turmoil in the administration there. There was a lot of fighting amongst the different factions.
Oh, yes.
That happens in every country, but at this time, it was pretty prominent then.
It really was. So they actually had to film this in Mexico. So a lot of the extras actually have Mexican accents and not Colombian accents.
True. Very true. But even El Guapo.
Wrong movie. What I always... So not what I always... Let's skip that part. What I am personally currently amazed by is that I didn't know that they had not filmed this in Colombia. Because, again, why would I know that? Back in the day, I haven't watched this movie, and I would say maybe 15, 20 years I haven't seen this movie. So, looking at it now and knowing that this is Mexico, I had no idea Mexico had such beautiful, beautiful topography and scenery.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea because, again, I am a stupid American, and my limitations of Mexico are from what Texas. I lived in West Texas, and I just assumed most of Mexico looked like West Texas because there's nothing there, and it's hot, and it's really close to West Texas, so I just assumed it was all kind of similar.
Yeah, most of Mexico is not a desert landscape like Texas or Southern California.
Yeah, see, I just assumed that a lot of it was, because, again, what did I know? I had no reason to not know, but now I know, because that's what happens, is you learn something new, you adapt that information. See, we can all grow like this, people. Keep that in mind. But I think that I'm excited, to learn that there's these beautiful mountain ranges and lush forests, and I would love to go see them because I had no real interest in Mexico because I don't like deserts. I've lived in 2 of them. I can't do it again. I didn't even like being in my backyard for the half an hour I was out there planting seeds earlier, and because it was 11 o'clock in the morning, it was hot.
You wanted to brag that you planted seeds.
I wanted to brag that I finally put together all of my planters, put soil in them, and got seeds in them. So that was 3 steps that I had not intended to get done. So, but it was hot, and I didn't like it. And it was only, not even 70-something degrees out there. And I was already bitching about the heat and sweating buckets. I can't do another desert, people. So knowing that there are beautiful, lush, cool, tranquil areas in Mexico makes me really like to go and see those areas. So it was my tourism rant.
Okay. So we get love and romance, which is not... It is the very on-the-nose thing that you get from the movie. But it's about her inner strength and resilience that she kind of builds up as it goes on. She gains more confidence. When she gets her change of clothes,
yes,
she's standing there absolutely beautiful. Now, granted, she was absolutely beautiful when she was sweating buckets and she was in dirt. Rags.
Yeah,
she was fantastic in all of it.
Yeah,
but when she's standing there, she's confident in herself. And one of the things is when it's time to leave and they climb out of the window, she doesn't hesitate.
No.
To climb out of the window and then scamper down the light pole and land on her butt. There's 2 times where she just lands on her butt, which are very comedic takes, like when she swings on the vine.
Oh, yeah, across the ravine. And she just kind of like boom.
Across the ravine and then lands. Yeah, she lands on
her butt. And
then
when he does it on purpose, the mountain has a little bit of a give, guys. It's a little bit of a give.
Yeah, when he hits the side of the ravine, it's very plasticky.
Very plastic.
Or rubber, yes. But well done, because it looks a lot like a rock until it folds.
And I honestly never noticed it before, and I just happened to see it, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, well, welcome to the 80s.
Yeah. The gunshot sounds are the worst.
Terrible. It was like they took the sound effects from Hill Street Blues.
I mean, they went all the way back to like Gunsmoke.
True enough. True enough.
They were bad.
Well, what I was saying was like TV show.
Oh, yeah.
It was a TV
very,
show
very
gunshots.
tinny.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact that they were outside, it sounded like they were in a tinny shooting range.
Maybe that was on purpose, because it was to kind of replicate the first part where she's imagining her book.
Maybe.
In which those gunshots were very like spaghetti western gunshots.
Yeah, and that was where I could see the intention being there. But then later on, when they're in the middle of this jungle, and the gunshots are still just as tinny.
That's the thing about this movie, is I think that it could have gone another way. It could have gone her romantic imaginings, and then the reality of it hitting her very hard in the face, and her finding out there is no such thing as this romantic notion, and that the gunshots are real, and that this is all, it could get very dark. This could become a very dark film. But the fact that it played out like the romantic novel, I think the gunshots had to be that way.
I guess so, yeah.
Or it would have been too real.
I think so.
All the good guys got missed. They didn't get shot.
Oh my God! Everybody shot like ass. I think I couldn't shoot a rifle if you paid me.
But that's a romantic novel. No one gets shot. You have to survive to fall in love.
Yeah, there was no blood.
I mean, there was when she got cut, but that was the one quote unquote torture scene in which he loses a hand, not her.
That's true.
So I think that this could have definitely gone another way. And in the 80s, I think that was not a way it was willing to go. Mm-hmm. But I think today, if it got remade, it would probably go towards the darker.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a mistake. But because I think
it would lose the magic.
I think Romancing the Stone has to have the romancing part as the lead and not the stone. We can talk about the rock all day long, but without the heart, there is no reason for the stone.
Exactly. And what you can actually compare, in a way, the second, I would say, I'm going to say the second Crocodile Dundee movie, when she's got the bad guys after her and they go back to the bush, he's still protecting her. It's him still keeping her safe. And she never comes into herself as being the strong person. It's always Dundee doing all of the dirty work to protect her. Where here, Joan is right there. He's not at the hotel, and she doesn't wait around. She goes, and she goes, and she's right there waiting, talking to Ira, and and then Zolo shows up with, at the end of the movie, and it's just a different flavor. In Crocodile Dundee, the female role would not have done that. She would not have put herself in that position without Mick.
Right.
But here, she was like, I'm going for my sister. I'm going to go help my sister. And Jack's not here. I'm going anyway.
That's why, to me, this movie is very similar in, not style, but in sentiment to The Mummy.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
Because you have two strong women. Now, the difference is that they're strong in different ways. But they are both strong women, and it is definitely written by a woman's point of view.
Yes. In The Mummy, though, I feel like she is... I really wish I could remember these characters' names. Unfortunately, my brain is just not there. I didn't expect to talk about them. She is strong, but in a different... Yeah, you're right. She's strong in a different way. She is educated. She is very confident in who she is when it comes to...
she's confident in knowledge.
So, unfortunately, that doesn't make her street smart. It just makes her smart. And it's the same kind of thing with Joan, where Joan is educated, but she's not street smart because she's so afraid of everything. But she comes into herself, where in The Mummy, she comes into herself as well, but she was already, very aggressively very
right.
confident
But
herself.
these are very similar in the way that the man does not take over the film.
No.
They are essentially partners, and I still see it as a female-led film that happens to have a man who knows what they're doing and is competent, and also is not fighting them for the lead.
No, and
I mean, how refreshing is that both Jack, the character of Jack, and the character of Brendan Fraser's character, I cannot
Rachel
remember,
Weisz. Yeah.
are not competing for the lead. They're there to help. They're there as part of the team.
Yeah.
And while they're cads, while they are roguish, they are still there to support the woman who is in charge of everything.
And they have deep down underneath that rugged exterior, which is definitely a, I can't think of the word. It's a shell that they built up as a protection. It's because of the way the life that they have led so far has led them to be. But deep underneath of that protective shell is this really good man.
It's the salted caramel core.
Oh my God, it's the gooey, gooey center.
Yes. Everybody likes that. So beyond that, they develop Jack's ideals of heroism. And you can see that at first he's all for himself. He is very much and when you say roguish, the first thing I think is about the parrots.
Yeah.
It's about the birds. But honestly, he's roguish in another way, which is the typical roguishness of thinking about the money instead of what's happening around you, the relationships that you're making. But he quickly changes over.
Yeah.
He is not lacking for courage. He has courage. He doesn't run away on any of these things. He doesn't run away from his responsibility with Joan. Joan asks him to stay to help her, and he'll do it for money, but he does do it. But the heroism, that part of it, he still has to develop.
Yes.
He hasn't developed that yet at the first of the movie, only through these numerous trials that they kind of go through. And, there's a point of it's all about the journey and not the destination.
Yeah.
They're not trying to get to a particular city. They are,
but they're,
But that's not the goal. The goal is to free her sister.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter where they end up. It's as long as it's to get Elaine.
Right. And Jack is trying to help her get her sister. So I think that Joan, who already, I think, lacked a little bit of courage, but it was mainly not courage and heroism she lacked. It was her lack of confidence.
Oh, definitely.
She had the courage already. At the very start of the film, you see her crying.
Oh, yeah.
While she is writing her own book, she is crying. To openly weep, even in your own company, to openly weep while you're doing that takes emotional courage. And to not be ashamed of that. She's actively walking around her apartment looking for tissues, looking for paper products of any kind.
And her notes to remind her to buy tissues.
Right. But she is actively walking around the thing, completely unbothered by the fact that she is crying. She's trying to find the tissues. And that takes some emotional courage. And I think she already had that. So.
Oh, yeah. And to go back to the comparison with the Mummy is, the confidence in Rachel Weisz's character. She has that confidence where Joan Wilder doesn't. She lacks that confidence. They both have the education, the smarts, the knowledge. They just, one has confidence where the other one does not. Right.
And Joan develops that confidence, which is, I think, her primary. She needed her heart. And she was still searching for it. And she said a hopeful romantic.
Oh, yeah.
She's not a hopeless romantic. She's a hopeful romantic. She's a hopeless romantic at the start of the film.
Oh, yeah, because she didn't think she'd ever find it. Yeah.
Right. She's a hopeful romantic. And that means a lot when you think about the ramifications of her life.
Yes.
Where she started out only a few short weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And then where she ends up.
In the beginning, she's, wearing her hair tightly bound, in a bun. And then at the end, when she's walking down the street, she's got her hair down. She's walking with confidence and her head up. She's not hiding behind her jacket. She's walking. She is a woman of confidence that she had gained through her experiences. Even like you said, if it's only been a few days, it was an amazing life or death situation. She had her own adventure that not many people get to go on those types of adventures. And it gave her the confidence to realize that hiding away like she was not doing her any good. And whether or not she ever saw Jack again, she felt confident in knowing that she could survive it with or without him.
Right, right. And I think that, like in the humor in the film, much like The Mummy, it's there.
But it doesn't take away from the whole movie.
Right. It is not
now I want to go watch The Mummy.
Yeah, it's not there to take over the film. It is there to lighten what can be very heavy notes. And it's there to help carry the weight of the romance. Mm-hmm. Because you need that. You need humor to help carry the romance. You cannot have all danger or you end up with speed. And we don't want speed.
No, we don't want speed.
And speed is perfectly fine.
But
There's nothing wrong with speed, but this is a romance novel come to life. You don't want speed. You want The Mummy, essentially.
You do. And, and Mummy is a romance because even... it's like we're not...
All we're doing is talking about Mummy.
But really, though, it is a romance because you go back to Imhotep and his love of the princess, the empress, whatever. Yeah, the forbidden love. It was still a love. And, he goes literally through thousands of years to re-find his actual love. Yeah. So it is a love story.
I mean, in an ideal world in which we don't have all these boundaries that we set for each other and in a social world that we limit the love and romance to man and woman, we could have had Michael Douglas and Brendan Fraser adventuring around the world, kissing each other and making love and finding mummies and stones.
I love Brendan Fraser. I do. He's just a big old teddy bear. I just want to hug him and make him cookies.
I want to hug all these people. They're awesome.
I just want to make him cookies and tell him everything's going to be okay.
I like how the film has balanced so much of it. Danny DeVito. When he is he's only got small parts. These are small, like, vignettes, basically, within the whole arrangement of Joan and Jack traveling.
But he has the best lines
in
this movie.
He has got such great one-liners that he gets to throw out in anger.
Though he does say some... When he first is in the police department, when he first picks up Zolo, he uses a choice word I'm not going to repeat, but I guess was...
It was okay in the 80s.
It's not okay in any universe, but it was definitely a derogatory Hispanic name.
Oh, yeah, definitely not great.
And I was like, I forgot about that.
But when he's in the police station and he's trying to get his drawing, his wanted poster off the wall,
and he falls off the counter.
That is just like it's not out of nowhere, but it is designed to appear out of nowhere as this moment of levity.
Oh, yeah.
Within this, what you know is a feeling of a dirty, sweaty, like meltdown.
Yes.
Okay? And he is having this meltdown on the phone with Ira, his cousin, and he falls off the thing, and that just breaks that tension.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know, I didn't see anywhere saying whether or not that was an intentional, like he was supposed to fall off the counter. But I hate to say this, but it kind of reminded me of Chris Pratt in Parks and Rec when he dives over the counter to go get the birth certificate in Eagleton.
Yeah.
That whole thing, because a lot of that was not, like, he throws the thing and it hits the light and most of that scene was so improvised, and I have to wonder like how much of
Well, see, actually, it reminds me of when he was Star-Lord and he was throwing the ball up and catching it, and then he was handing it and dropped it and caught it again. Yeah. So, because that was on accident, and that was improv, but it was on accident, and they kept it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to sing the praises of Chris Pratt.
Yeah, I hate to say the things that I hate to sing his praises as well for my own personal reasons, but also some of the best bloopers on Parks and Rec.
True enough.
And improvised shit came from him.
It's really hard. I cannot separate the artist from the art.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of his beliefs and regardless of his, it's how he treated his special needs child. That's the part that makes me angry.
So we have greed and morality. Mm-hmm. That's what I have notes on, is Jack's struggle with his greed, but not just Jack. We have several other people, and they're all men, who are driven by greed in this film. And their need for the map, which is really to attain the gem or the heart, it's in the shape. It's in the literal shape of an English drawn heart.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful emerald, but it is definitely in the shape of a heart, el corazon.
Right.
Which is that's where I learned that meant heart.
I think that's where most people learn.
I didn't do good in Spanish
class. Ask me where I learned el baño.
We used to live in a town that was near the Two Sticks, which is by the bathroom, Dos Palos and Los Baños. But I didn't do well in Spanish class. I have a hard time. I really wish I could learn a language, y'all. I just have such a hard time with it. My brain can't think outside of an English standard sentence. I wish I could.
So Jack is learning, as Joan is learning her inner strength and her confidence, Jack is learning, I think he's the one that's learning to love. And he is learning what it means to care about other people and rather than yourself.
Well, yeah, because he's been alone for so long.
Which gives him this somewhat mode of morality. Mm-hmm. I think when you want to please other people because it just feels good to you, when you want to help them because it feels good to you, when you get that feeling on the back of your neck, like hairs going up because you've done something for someone, I think that is when you know that you're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. Because it's like a dopamine rush.
Oh, yeah.
And Jack gets to make those choices. And you can see him visibly warring with himself on whether or not he's going to do it when he's in bed with her. And he's talking about the boat. Mm-hmm. Because he's got this idea of the sailboat. He's got this photo of the sailboat that he wants to own one day.
Yeah.
And that's what he's been working towards. And he's laying on top of Kathleen Turner, or Joan in this case. Mm-hmm. And he's kissing her and he's talking about it. He's sharing his desires with her. He's sharing his dreams with her, which is important because I don't think he's talked to many people to begin with, and he was surly when he did it.
Yeah.
But he is now smitten with Joan. In fact, so much so that while he's talking about it, he agrees that, yes, even if we get the stone, it's going to help your sister.
Yeah.
If we have to give it up, we give it up. He slides the map that he's hidden between the mattresses out and put it back in her purse because he was going to make a copy later.
Yep. Because they went to a couple places and he would ask about the Xerox. And of course, as per usual, the Xerox machines were broken. Because that's what happens.
They don't say copier machine, they say Xerox because it's like the only brand that was actually working at the time.
I think so. I think is what it was. Because copier machines, they had the ones we had in school. What were those? The Ditto machines. The ones that made...
Well, I don't think we had those in 84.
I don't remember when... But I just remember, when did they stop calling copies Dittos?
When they stopped using the Ditto machine.
I guess so. Because I just remember my teachers used to always call them Dittos. And sometimes I would actually want to call them Dittos when I was in my classroom, and I had to be like, no, it's not a ditto. It's a copy. I noticed that when I remember watching it and thinking, God, he must have been in that jungle forever. How long was he in that jungle? He says a year and a half, but he didn't know that the Doobie Brothers had broken up. So let's assume that it was filmed in 84. But it was released in 84, which means they were filming it in 83.
Right.
And so a year and a half, yeah, because the Doobie Brothers breaking up in 82, that makes sense. And then the cover of the Rolling Stone that he is reading has Elvis Costello on the cover, and I should have looked to see what year that was, but I did not. But I just think that's I didn't grasp that as a younger person, because the Doobie Brothers, as far as I had always known, were broken up. Yeah, they got back together in 87, but
that's how long he'd been out of the game. So
yeah,
he was surprised.
He said a year and a half, so that would make sense. It wouldn't make sense for 84, but it would make sense for 83.
Right.
And it was, I had like numbers, I like years, and I like to figure those things out. Yeah, and when they're in that the smugglers plane.
Juan.
Yeah, the plane.
Oh, the plane before Juan.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, before Juan. The freaking, all those fucking kilos of, I love when he's like, you smoke marijuana? And she's like, I went to college. Like, as if to say, if you don't go to college, how would you know about it? You know?
But they burned the marijuana as a source of heat.
Yeah.
But then they
smoking it.
They didn't unwrap it.
No,
They just burned the plastic and everything.
The carcinogens.
I mean, it would have smelled bad on top of that.
Oh, yeah, the burnt rubber plastic.
The skunk weed alone.
Oh, my God. Oh, no, I bet you that wasn't skunky. I bet you that was the good shit. It didn't smell skunky. What is with pot? Why does it smell so skunky?
It shouldn't be that bad now. I don't know why it is.
I don't know if it's because we're old.
No, I think our kids are just cheap.
Get better drugs.
No, I'm tired of smelling your horrible weed. Get better weed. It's legal.
Well.
Ish. It's legal-ish. So, Juan is my favorite part.
Juan is funny.
Juan is my favorite part of the adventure part.
Yeah.
Okay? Because Juan is a drug dealer.
Yes.
They call him a bellmaker. He is a drug dealer. He is enamored with Joan Wilder.
Yes.
Because he reads all of her novels, all her romance novels.
What is he calls her Juan Wilder.
Juan Wilder. Juanita Wilder. Was it Juanita? Is that what
he said Juanita, and then he was like Juan at the time. So he was saying both, but his name is Juan as well. Right. So yeah.
But that's, for me, every time I see it, I'm like, El Guapo, because automatically he's El Guapo.
Oh, I forgot he played El Guapo.
Yeah.
That's why you were making the El Guapo jokes. Okay, I'm sorry. It didn't dawn on me that it was the same actor.
Because he is such a fun guy. I mean, first of all, he's a Mexican director, producer, actor.
Yeah.
He is brilliant. He has done so much work outside of Hollywood, much less in Hollywood. But the fact that he is having so much fun in this, it reminds me of Vibe and Peter Falk.
Oh, yeah.
He is just having a goddamn ball. Him and his little mule.
Yes, his little mule. That thing is a kick-ass little mule.
And I forgot how fun this scenario was, this whole, section of the movie, because it's just
he
insane.
Puts that truck in, he backs that thing up, and they're like, what are you doing? Now, they're being chased by cops at this point, and they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, that's my favorite pig.
He's not going to run over his favorite pig.
Ran over a chicken, though, didn't he?
Yes, he's a drug dealer, but I love the fact that as he's driving through this town fast with them shooting at him, he's pointing out where he was born.
Yep.
Where, his brother planted that tree.
He's giving him a site tour. Yeah. We might die. We're getting chased by police that might be corrupt, and I'm a drug dealer. But I'm going to give you the penny tour of our little town here.
I like to think that later on, and I don't remember this coming up again, but later on that Joan and Jack like have him over.
Oh, that would be funny. Or they go to visit him and bring him books or something, you know?
Or they bring him to New York or whatever, or on the sailboat or
He did
something
help
like that.
them.
Because, he is so enamored with Joan and he's so helpful. I mean, he goes out of his way to help her.
Mm-hmm.
And, and the fact that all the hardened criminals that are in the town also love Joan because he reads to them every Saturday.
Yes. So when they finally, because they're all like, pitchforks and torches, and they're like, go see the bell maker because, he's got a car. But they still follow them all the way to his house. And then when he realizes who it is, he's like, no, it's all good. It's Joan Wilder.
And he says, the one I read to you every Saturday. And they're like, oh, Joan Wilder. And they love her.
And it's just the cutest
And they're like,
thing.
have a good day. And they walk off.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, no, they ain't fucking around.
So that's one of my favorite parts of the film because it's that just really intense chase scene, but it's got so much levity in it.
It really does. It's there's so many good things about this movie.
And it's got some great actors in it. And you get to see these Mexican actors who do not get showcased a lot. Other than Juan, the man who plays Juan.
Yeah, and Zolo. But even, he's...
Which is Alfonso Aurora?
Zolo? No, it's Manuel...
No, Juan.
Oh, Juan. Alfonso Aurora.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Zolo. I'm like looking because I was reading Zolo's name, and I'm like, no, he's Manuel Ojeda. I'm like, what the heck? And I'm sorry for butchering names, guys, because again, I have a hard time with languages. I can.
Oh, I did not realize that's who the vendor was in New York. Is Ron Silver?
Oh my God!
How the hell do you not know that? Ron Silver is so iconic.
Yeah,
but he did have a puppet in his hand.
It's true,
and was saying things
weird
about it
stuff.
Being kinky.
Yeah.
So it's just weird that he was a bit actor in this.
And Mary Ellen Trainor played Elaine.
Ron Silver died in 2009.
Oh, okay.
I forgot about that. He was a great actor. He did a lot of good stuff. I didn't know he was in this film. But it should be noted he was the awkward sales.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to give
vendor,
because we didn't mention the actress who played Elaine, and even though she really doesn't have a lot going on, she does have some speaking. She does have some lines.
Yeah, Mary Ellen Trainor.
Yeah,
she was pretty popular in the 80s.
Oh,
so
definitely.
The fact that she was playing second in a cast.
Yeah, and she does have a very relatively small role.
Tertiary character, yes. But she is named. Mm-hmm. I just want to say she's named, and she has 5 lines of dialogue at least.
Yes, and we will talk about that in a very short time. So how did the movie make you feel now, overall?
I loved it.
I was not mad. I was not mad at all.
I don't feel any loss of nostalgia.
Me either. I was still enjoying it. I still laughed at the parts.
There are parts where I'm like, that's not so great.
Yeah, but really though.
Because the times have changed, and also because I have come into more awareness. You could say I'm woke. I have come into more awareness about disparity.
Yeah, and like this the one part where she's climbing up and Michael Douglas is, Jack is just kind of eyeballing the slit in her skirt and her leg and thigh. And it's like, okay, dude, y'all are like literally hiding.
Horn dogs.
Yeah, you're running for your life and you're getting your sex on here. All you're doing is just looking at her leg and she's just trying to climb up this thing without breaking her neck.
Yeah, and there's going to be objectification.
Yeah.
That's going to be a part of it because it was still written in the 80s.
And then that one line with Danny DeVito in the police station. Honestly, I think if those are the worst things in this whole entire movie, they're not.
Yeah, and the acting was still great.
Yeah.
The action sequences were great, but non-threatening.
Mm-hmm. Because nobody can shoot straight.
I think the gunshots, the sounds were there as a reminder that this is a romance story.
True.
And I'm okay with that. I loved the chemistry between Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas.
Definitely.
And
they do have chemistry.
Right. And I also liked the phone calls between Ira
and Ralph. Yeah.
And Ralph, because they made it they broke up the action with antagonistic anger towards each other.
They're cousins, and you can tell they care about each other, but also they want to kill each other, like true cousins would. And I just love that, like when he's leaving at the end, and he's like, "But what about me? We're cousins. Our mothers." And all I can hear is the Sisters song in my head.
But I really liked this movie. I still love. I have a new formed love for this movie.
Definitely.
I identify with Joan, and I can appreciate Jack.
Yeah.
And that is something that's taken a lifetime.
I get that. I get that a lot.
I wasn't jealous of Joan. I was marveling at how beautiful Kathleen Turner was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was happy for Joan to get her story. But I wasn't jealous of her. And I was always jealous of her before, because you want that, you know? But I got to enjoy the film. I just got to enjoy it without overanalyzing it.
Oh, great.
And just be happy for Joan and be happy for Jack. And
I think for me, and I'm not one, I really have a hard time with my feelings about things.
Great podcast to be on.
But this kind of makes me have to focus on my feelings and to really think about them. I don't necessarily think I'm that strong of a person, regardless of what you may think, or people in my circle who think I am. But I will say that the confidence that Joan has at the end of the movie, I feel that I can relate to that. You have to go through some shit sometimes to come out of this little hole that you dig for yourself to protect yourself. And I know how she felt in the beginning, being that person who is alone and just maybe not 100% content with your aloneness, but too afraid to make any changes and break out of that shell. But also going through things in your life that not many people get to either experience or should have to experience, to make you have no choice but to come out of your shell, to build the confidence that you need. Because sometimes you need to find that confidence. It's there. You just have to find it and build it. And I don't necessarily think I'm, going to walk down the streets of New York with my hair flowing behind me and my head held high, because I don't feel like I have that level of confidence. But I feel like I am a stronger person than I was when I was younger and before I had to deal with the shit that I've had to deal with. And think that, so I relate with that part of it. Yes, it only took her a few days, where it took me years. I feel like that's before I was looking at her with awe of, I want what you have. And mostly my focus was on Jack and wanting that. Now I feel like I totally can relate with, and I hadn't thought about it until seeing it now, I can relate with Joan more so now, knowing that I have a version of Jack, but also if
Is that me?
Maybe. But also if I didn't have somebody, I could still function. I wouldn't be happy about it, but I can keep going.
No, and that's the way you should be.
But I didn't think about, like, when I was younger, when things would fall apart, I would fall apart. And now if things fell apart, I would be unhappy, but I would keep going. I might need a few days.
But that's where Joan is.
Yeah.
You came around, Joan came around to the same ideal that she loves Jack. Mm-hmm. She's happy that he's in her life. But she's a stronger person now.
Yeah.
And it's okay to go on alone if everything else falls apart.
Yes.
So if Jack were to die, Joan would grieve, but she would still have that strength, which is something they shared together.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the way anyone should be. I would never want you to be unhappy. Without me, I would want you to try to continue as far as you can.
Oh, yeah, and I would feel the same way.
Because I know there is only one life. You don't get another do-over. This is it.
This is it.
This is the only one for me my belief is that you only have this one. You really have to make it count. And I want you to make it count, even if I'm not here. And I understand that. At the end, when she climbs up the rope ladder, without a thought, she just drops her bag of groceries, takes the flowers out, and climbs up the ladder without a thought.
Okay, now I would have been flinging those bags up onto the ship onto the boat because, bitch, I just spent all that money and I ain't leaving the food behind. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's the bitch I am. Because in this economy.
So so Jack is, Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Jack is on top of the boat, which he should not be up there while it's being transported.
No, because honestly, transporting a boat, you're on top of the boat, and they had the mast up in New York City, driving the boat through the streets.
Yeah, the mast
what
is
the hell?
still
With
attached.
the sail.
Yeah.
You get a cross breeze going through a one of those side roads, and you're done because that's built on a grid.
We're calling it out right here. Romancing the Stone sucks because of
from that one scene alone.
Just from the lack of continuity with reality. Because this boat just pulls us right out of the film.
So when I was doing my research, there was like a metric ton of mistakes and shit that people thought were mistakes. I mean, and I was like, okay, y'all, sometimes I can pull one of these mistakes out and be like, okay, this is funny. There were too many of them. And I was like, this isn't even fun anymore.
But what I do like about this is at the end, when it's pulling away, when the boat's pulling away, it does a while you were sleeping.
Yeah.
This is the original.
Yeah.
And while you were sleeping replicates it in a way of it pulling away and you see the name on the back.
Name on the back. Yeah. And it's Angelina, which is the name of her character in the story that's finishing in the very beginning of the movie.
Right.
Yeah. And again, some of the gaffes that they do, that you are finding that are mistakes, is like they use American alligators.
Right.
And they are only found in the Gulf area of the United States. They're not found in South America. Well, I mean, they are, but they're not really. And they wouldn't have them in Colombia.
And this is weird because we just watched that Poker Face episode.
I know, literally, we just watched the last episode that they had aired of Poker Face, and there was an alligator, and that was it was an alligator, right?
I don't know. Is it alligator
I don't
or crocodile?
remember. I call them crocodiddles, so I'm not a big judge. They're all crocodiddles.
Lake Placid. We gotta do that.
We gotta do Lake Placid. Only for Betty White alone.
So much.
For Betty White alone.
I know.
Bless that woman.
So let's see if Romancing the Stone can pass the Castellini test.
Yes.
Is it a feminist film? Is it a film that's inclusive?
It does have a diverse cast the sense that, yes, it is a South American, Central American.
Unfortunately, most of those men, or most of the Mexican people, are portrayed as
Colombian
bad guys.
And they are portrayed as bad guys, unfortunately. But yes, it does. I mean, but even Jewel of the Nile, because everything takes place in India, that it does have a very diverse cast in that sense, where not everybody's a white person.
So there have to be at least 2 named women characters with at least 5 lines of dialogue each.
Okay, so we have Joan Wilder. We have Gloria. We
have
Elaine.
Yes. So we have 3 women who all are named and they have at least 5 lines of dialogue.
Yes.
Those characters must have a conversation, not necessarily with the other woman, either not about their partner or with their partner, future or current, and not about their relationship.
So nobody really talks about their relationship.
No.
The closest we come is to Joan and Jack in bed. And even then, they're talking about his boat.
But Joan and Gloria, they talk about Joan's writing and her career.
And they do talk about her not having a relationship.
But that's not about
a relationship.
Joan and Elaine talk over the phone about the map, the kidnapping.
And they don't even discuss her husband. They just mention that her husband sent the map.
Yeah.
And that's it. So not even about the relationship. Like, how are you doing with the fact that your husband was sent back to you in pieces? You know, poor Elaine. She really gets the shit end of this movie, really. Because
really does.
Her poor husband is dead.
And she doesn't even have time to grieve.
No.
And she doesn't really grieve at all.
Well, I mean, she got kidnapped like within minutes of being...
But like nicely kidnapped.
That's true. Well, I mean, she did get boloed in the back of the head by a little kid.
That's true. But I'm talking about like when she got on the boat, they didn't really hurt her and they gave her steak that they fed to an alligator.
That's true.
Look at those snappers.
Uh-huh.
Or
those American
chompers,
alligators.
Snappers, chompers.
Oh, I forget
I don't know
what
what he said. Ira said something.
Yeah.
At least one of the women has to be integral to the plot, meaning that if she were written out of the film, it could not reach the same ending.
Okay, so I'm going to go from least important to most important. Okay,
That's the way I do it.
So if Gloria was written out, there would be nobody there to be her quote unquote, I guess, voice of reason, because she does try to talk her out of leaving. If Elaine wasn't there, there'd be no reason for Joan to go to South America in the first place. And if Joan wasn't there, there'd be no movie.
All very accurate assessments. Yeah, without Joan, there's definitely no story.
So
without any of them,
1984's Romancing the Stone is a feminist movie.
It meets all three criteria. So yes, it definitely is a passing grade for Castellini test.
Yes.
So, Romancing the Stone.
Yep.
It lives up to the hype.
Who'd have thunk?
It lives. I really didn't think that it. When I was looking back at it when we suggested this, I was like, this may not pass the Castellini because it is an 84 action adventure.
Yeah, and literally because it has been so many years, I had forgotten why she had gone to South America. I didn't even remember Gloria's character. There was so much about the movie that I totally forgot.
Well, you tend to parse it into these sections. Mm-hmm. The romance is going to be the lead on that.
Oh, yeah.
And then you remember the boat. You
remember the scene with his
moments.
face between her legs because they slid down the mountain.
Right.
And it started one hell of a morning to one bitch of a day. And it's never delivered in the movie the same way you remember it hearing it in your head.
So do you know who was originally going to be cast as Joan Wilder?
There were a few that I saw.
Their choice was Deborah Winger.
But she bit Michael Douglas.
Yes.
I don't even want to know.
I don't know why that was, but...
I want to hear the story of that one, but then I also don't want to hear the story
She was
of that
first
one.
proposed, but Kathleen Turner won it because she did Body Heat.
Ah, okay.
And it was a departure because, see, Body Heat is this really steamy, like vixenish, like it is very, at the time, very hot and naughty film. And this is a romantic comedy. Mm-hmm. They were two, like, polar opposites, but they needed something. They really wanted, like, the sexiness, this hidden sexiness underneath. I think they did a good choice with Kathleen Turner, who can be mousy 1 second, much like Cher, mousy 1 second, stunningly beautiful the next second.
Oh, I agree. Well, she did another movie, and it wasn't as well received. I can't remember.
Where she was a detective, a Russian detective?
Was she a Russian detective?
Yes.
I'm thinking of, there was a baby involved.
Oh, I don't remember that much of it.
Yeah, like there were spies or something, and there was a baby. Maybe I'm not thinking of the right movie. I don't know. I just always thought it was her in my head.
Now War of the Roses was.
Oh, I liked War of the Roses.
Was good. That was a hard one to watch. Mm-hmm. But it was good.
Who was that?
Of course, she did Peggy Sue Got Married.
Yeah. But War of the Roses. What was the male in that? That wasn't Michael Douglas too, right?
Well, I mean, oddly enough, it was Danny DeVito in the. He was a tertiary character, and he was the director.
Huh.
And it was Michael Douglas.
It was. I thought
so
it was
you got
something
all three
about
of them.
coming back together for this very.
And that was in '89, so that was.
And that was well after.
Yeah, I mean,
Jewel of the Nile too.
'84. We're talking about almost. It's 40 years.
Yeah.
It's 40 years old.
42. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 40, 41. Yeah.
41. So Romancing the Stone has stood the test of time. I really like that.
I know. I mean...
I know she was you mean Undercover Blues.
That's what I was thinking of, Undercover Blues.
That's a different thing. Yeah, that's a different thing.
I just remembered her being in that movie, and I don't know why I thought about it.
I was thinking V.I. Warkoski.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that was a 91 film, so yeah, she was...
Other than, so sometimes when we watch... So, I have a hard time rewatching things like even Torchwood, where Torchwood's not that long ago, considering, but I still have a hard time rewatching this show that I truly, truly loved and had watched a million times because it's dated. And I have a hard time sometimes with the datedness of it. And I don't know why it bothers me. And I don't know if that's necessarily the reason why I have a hard time, but that's what I justify.
I have the same thing.
And
I can see that.
But this movie didn't have that. No, there were no cell phones. No, there were no... She was literally writing on a typewriter with headphones on. And you know that she had translated... She was doing her transcript. And so seeing that, you would think that, with the old the landlines on the wall and,
a phone booth in the first place.
Yeah.
You haven't seen a phone booth in 20 years.
Exactly. And there's so much about this movie that you think it would put the, that future ick, where, we're in the future, that's in the past, ick. I'm looking at this going, But it didn't do that. It didn't give me the willies. It didn't give me, any of that weird, even... I will give it one credit. Short Circuit didn't give me that weird feeling either, even though you think it would have, because again.
I think here's the thing about technology and movies. Mm-hmm. When you add technology into movies, you have to find a way to take it out of the movie. So let's say, for instance, Romancing the Stone is done today. Mm-hmm. You have to find a way to get rid of their reception, their cell phones, or some way of keeping them from being able to communicate readily.
Exactly.
Otherwise, there's no need for the movie.
True.
They can just Google all these things, find out where the stone is, and they're done. No one needed the map.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. That's an oversimplification. But every time technology is in a movie, especially action adventure, that kind of thing, they have to remove the technology in some way. They don't have to in this because it's ready-made, because there was no technology then.
And one of the things, like when you're looking at the bloopers and stuff, and this is something that's misconstrued as a blooper, is the fact that when they're in that little town and they meet Juan, and everyone's saying that there's no phone, and Juan's saying that he doesn't like a phone, and when they're driving back through the town, that you can see phone lines. But that doesn't mean that they have phones. It's just that there's the option for there to be a phone. At that time, it made sense. If I hate phones. In 1984, I could see people not wanting to have a landline in any way, shape, or form. Now, put that to 2025. Would there be...
Well, impoverished communities may only have one phone in the entire town.
Yeah, and so they probably weren't lying about there not being a phone. But now I would say, like, if this was now and they said, no, we don't have cell phones. Nobody has a cell phone in this town. Come on,
Drug dealers don't have burners.
Yeah, exactly. Don't give me that shit.
So you have to find a way to take the technology out. And in 84, you did not have to do that because it's ready-made into the program.
Yeah.
It's already there. You don't have to worry about that. Now you have to worry about that. Now it becomes a thing of how do we get Google out of this?
Oh, yeah.
Because we can't have Google. If it's Saw... Mm-hmm. You can't let them have their phones or they'll Google how to get out of the trap.
Well, and if she had a cell phone and she got off that plane, she would have known what bus to get on.
Right.
And that was something that's funny is it changes the sign from Cartagena and they flip it over and I think it says like Castile something. Actually, she was technically on the right bus because that castle is in Cartagena, according to one of my little trivia bits.
Okay. So
she really was on the right one, but the bus went the wrong way.
Because it was in the script.
Because it was plot point.
Yeah. and Jack parked in the road because it's plot point.
Yeah, because, what the fuck, man? What the fuck? Well, and also the driver. When she came up behind him to talk to him on the bus, and he full-fledged turns his whole top of his body around to talk to her or to listen to her and not look at the road in front of him is also plot.
Crazy, right?
It's crazy. So if you want to watch Romancing the Stone, you can rent it, unfortunately, on Google Play, Apple TV, Fandango, and Amazon for $3.99 a piece. And I think it's also on Tubi for free. So there you go. We just got to deal with the commercials. So here is our clue for next week's episode. Actually, I got two. And this one's going to be easy, guys. Because if you were paying attention earlier, we did discuss a little bit of it. Filming in this movie was interrupted 2 times. Once when the studio burned down, and the second time was when one of the lead's fathers died. And my second clue, unicorns. One of my favorite things is unicorns. I was also going to say that this movie also stars my least favorite actor and my most favorite actor at the same time.
Okay.
I'm excited about it.
So thank you for joining us on this emotional adventure as we swung into the movie Romancing the Stone and talked about how this movie affected us both back then and now. And we find that perhaps the stone was in us all along. I don't know, that's weird.
Ouch.
Seems weird, but you can always put it in your crotch.
Much like Michael Douglas did. He bent over before they actually hit him in the nuts. If you caught that.
Well, yeah, he's not going to let him actually hit him in the nuts.
He preemptively buckled over.
It wasn't a real gem in there. That was glass. That would have cut him.
That was his jewels. There was jewels either way.
This has been Once More with Feelings with Beth and Michelle. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at OMWFPod. Visit our page at oncemorewithfeelings.podbean.com. You can send us an email. Please do. It's omwfpod@gmail.com. Take a moment to subscribe and rate us on iTunes and on whatever you're listening to. It's been one hell of a morning.
And one bitch of a day.
That was the end of Grogan, the man who killed my father, raped and murdered my sister, burned my ranch, shot my dog, and stole my Bible.